Hello, ladies. Try that again. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a March 28th. That's right, March 28th, the first quarter of the year, almost in the books. 2023 edition of the MSP Initiative Live. My name is George Bardisi, and we're going to do a quick housekeeping and then jump into some interesting conversation because there's always something to talk about in the sandbox. And let's face it, never a dull moment, I think. But here we go. Housekeeping. MSPinitiative.com. We launched a new website just a little bit ago. This session and every other session we've ever done is recorded. That's right. So when people give you their cell phone numbers at the end of these sessions, that's where you can go and find them. So this session will be available under sessions at MSPinitiative.com. We have a Community Minds event coming up in August. So August, and I'll give you the dates next session, but I think second or third week of August, we have a bunch of speakers coming in to kind of help get you past the same thing that happens in every breakout session you've ever been to. Nothing. You walk away 6 months later, you forgot what they even talked about. No progress is made. We're going to workshop through that. We have some MSP community block parties coming up this year. I can officially say that we had one last week in London. So thanks for everybody that came out where we take the block party over the ocean. We're about to officially announce, and I'll just do a soft announcement now, that we are doing a MSP community block party at Dublin for DattoCon Dublin coming up this summer. And then in the fall, we'll be doing one at DattoCon Miami, because now last year's DC event is now a Miami event. So if you haven't circled those events on your calendar, now you know that those are now officially in the list. And you can also include the Taylor Business Group Big event, which is in Fort Lauderdale in August. So there's 3 new block parties, if you missed last week's one in London, that are coming up. Circle them on the schedule. Yes, we are doing them. And no, we're not bringing a crazy name level band like the All American Rejects for every single one, but it'll still be a good time. Lastly, we have some community offers for vendors who have raised their hands and put their name, for something special for the community. Sure, more people will add to those, but keep an eye on there. And lastly is our industry calendar. Since everybody's calendar is slightly different, we have put ours up with all the things happening in the industry. And if you want to add events, feel free to submit yours below. And that is the housekeeping, MSPinitiative.com. Today, we bring back Joel from Infima Security. And as you know how we work on these things, guys, this is an open conversation. Feel free to jump in at any time. Please be respectful. We love the banter, mostly, especially with Keith Nelson. He's the best. And of course, I see Brad Gross popped in here too. How you doing, Brad? Yeah. So keep an open conversation. We're going to talk about industry stuff, and we'll see where we go. All of that being said, Joel, thanks for jumping on again today. We had you last year. Welcome to 2023. If it hasn't already been crazy enough for you, I hear you're in Orlando. Kind of makes me a little bit jealous because I'm constantly flying into Florida for something. And everything is either in Florida, Texas, or Vegas, it feels like. And Florida seems to be like, I think, the top of the 3 I just mentioned. Makes it easy for you, I think.
It makes it real easy. And it's good to be back with you, George. Thanks for putting this on. Love the effort that you and the entire team are doing at MSP Initiative. And yeah, Florida's a great spot. Yeah, it is a great spot. So I spent enough time in the Northeast that I'm happy to be here, so.
Yeah, I would say that I was on a call yesterday with an MSP, pretty big one that's growing very fast in Florida. Their strategy is to just acquire MSPs in Florida to grow because that's the state that they're targeting. Awesome, by the way. And then we got into the whole, man, there's a lot of people in Florida. And that's where I got the stat yesterday that 1,000 new people a day are moving to Florida.
From California.
Or the Northeast or anywhere else.
We're definitely taking some from you guys out there, Keith.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. I had mentioned that. I had said it a couple times on, one podcast or another that I think last year I was reading one of the Verizon Wireless shareholders reports, which you have to do quarterly if they're publicly traded. And they had unexpectedly added 700,000 more cell phones, connections to their network in Florida than they had capacity for. And they had to emergency funds had to be rerouted to like build more tower space in order to like accommodate. And that's just one carrier, right? So like, think about that. 700,000 more cell phone connections than they had planned for.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we might fill up the state. I don't know if we can take everybody, but it's still, water's warm, it's pleasant.
Yeah, no, I get that. I asked myself, I guess there's a lot of space in the middle or in like in the north and the panhandle, but like, where are these houses and apartments and rooms? Like, it's got to be a finite amount, right? They can't build them that fast.
We still got some space.
Where do these people go? I don't know. The beach?
Yeah, we got a lot of coastline. Yeah, that is a benefit too.
Yeah, just camp out on the beach and figure it out.
It's not a bad life.
Could you imagine? Joel, for the people who didn't catch you before, just don't know about you or your company, I just love to like make sure people understand, hey, it's a journey through technology land, right? And like as constantly as things are changing, everybody has a different route. Would love to like make sure people know your story a little bit. How did you end up, where did you start and how do you end up where you're at now? Give us a little, journey down memory lane.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I think everybody likes to tell their own story a little bit, but how I got here is, still a little bit of a mystery to me, but, I love that we are here. So in Infima, we do security awareness training. A lot of folks probably know that already, but I came from doing I worked on Wall Street after school. I was up there for a decade and it was super cool. I got to be up there during 2008 when everything was collapsing in the middle of it. It's a tremendous learning experience, sort of painful because you know how terrible things are going on outside, but you're like in this bubble of like, and I was at Merrill Lynch and we almost went under ourselves until Bank of America came into the rescue. I remember that very vividly. But I got to do that for 10 years, trading foreign currencies, running some desks at big banks and hedge funds and stuff like that. Really cool. And also then realized like that's probably not where I wanted to be long term. It's not necessarily conducive to the lifestyle that I ultimately wanted. One problem with the currency market is it doesn't close. And so left there, came back home to Florida where I grew up here in Central Florida, and spent some time kicking around a lot of different ideas of what to do next. Came together with my co-founder, Kevin, who is truly the brains behind the operation. He and I were close friends at University of Florida, roommates, and have been very close for years. He, on the other hand, had spent that decade I was in New York. He was working with the intelligence community. He was with top secret security clearance, and he was protecting all of our 3-letter organizations. So we sort of kind of came together with this idea of like, I think security is a really interesting place to be. And he happened to have an enormous amount of experience in the space. We actually first started with a model. I don't want to like downplay what they've done because we were nowhere close, but the idea was kind of headed in the direction of like Black Point. And I'm glad we didn't because I wouldn't want to compete with John and team. But on the side, we had started building a security awareness training platform. And then that's really what launched us into it. And, I love it because now while I'm not tech background, what we do is we're focused on the behavioral issues that are driving the mistakes. And we believe that one of our core foundations of our training, of our platform, is that we're solving a behavioral issue for those end users. And that's what becomes really fun, because when you really boil it down, trading, my whole prior career, is just about your own psychology and the market's psychology. It is an experience in behavioral science. And so now we get to combine those things. And that's what's really fun is kind of taking technology with behavioral science and figuring how we merge that. It's very
I can tell you not everybody took those courses at any educational level, behavioral science and all that jazz. There is definitely something there. Let me rewind for a second. So is Wolf of Wall Street real?
Wall Street's gone in phases. In the 80s, you could do, like, there was nothing that you couldn't do. I wasn't there for it, but I heard about it. 90s, it got a little bit dialed down. 2000s, 2010s. Now you can't even, like, you can't even like whisper to somebody that you would like to like have more than 3 beers that night with one of your coworkers. I mean, it's an exaggeration, but you know, there's a lot of things that are real, that were real.
Okay.
You know,
So-
it was before my time, but it's
Okay. All right. So like, you know, probably.
Of course it's real. Everything on TV and on the internet's real, George.
that's right.
I really love the A-Team and Knight Rider, and like every time like BA and Hannibal went into the, you know, to the barn house and rolled out with a tank that they like, you know, fused together on their own. That was cool for me, but I digress.
AI is going to make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll see. Since you're in the financial industry and you know a little bit about it, you know, hard not to see what's happening with the markets. And I know it's a little bit off technology land, but not so much, right? We heard about Silicon Valley Bank. We heard about a bunch of people after them. We heard like there's 130 banks now that are potentially at risk. Like, how does that work? Like, I think we've all learned that the banks take your money that you've deposited and either loan it back out or they invest it in the market. Something like for every $1, they're investing 40. So like there's a little bit of a, I don't know if Ponzi scheme is the right word, but like there's an inflation point there that like probably doesn't last forever. You've been through 2008, you've been through the pandemic. Now what are we looking like?
I do love talking about this. I'm certainly not the best expert, but I think to your point, one of the most key things about this is, you know, it has those feelings that you kind of look around and say, was this not like the foundation that I thought it was? And I actually think it's reasonable for everybody to understand that, like the banking system is primarily based on trust. If all of us have our bank or our deposits at one bank and none of us and not all of us pull at the same time, we're all okay. So there's a little bit of like a coordination problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's why people have kind of pointed to the prisoner's dilemma when it came to Silicon Valley Bank. Because one of the key things with Silicon Valley Bank was, you know, they made some mistakes, some kind of inexcusable mistakes, it appears, with their assets, you know, the way they invested. But the real key thing, because nobody would have really been affected if not for the fact that it took a few people, kind of like the Peter Thiels of the world, who have been, you know, he's been said that he was one calling his portfolio companies. If there wasn't so much coordination on the deposit exit, if all of those withdrawals didn't happen at the same time, nobody would be any wiser. And the key thing here is, while there's huge losses on if you mark their portfolio to market, when they own US Treasuries, you're going to get paid back. It's just the problem that it's worth less today. And as long as you still have the deposits there at, you know, they're giving you 0% and still able to make, you know, 1.5 or 2 on the bonds that they own with to the government, it all works out. It's just a long slug because SVB had loaded up on a lot of stuff, sort of like right at the highs of the bond market, and then everything. You know, there's a lot more to that I think we'll kind of see as it shakes out. But
would you even say they're really a bank in the common sense? They're more of an investment house. You know, they're kind of on a fringe there, and I think they're a little out of their portfolio is difficult for standard bank regulators to oversee because they're parking angel funds, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, Keith, for sure. You know, if you look back at, because you know the regulators dictate what you can own, so they're very clear on that. What is kind of the other side of this is they look at your deposits, but they don't necessarily look at the correlation, like kind of doing a simulation, let's say, of a withdrawal. And like, let's say that we have a bank in Houston, and that bank in Houston banks only people in the oil patch. It's just oil drillers. If oil prices collapse, it's no surprise to anybody that those deposits are going to dwindle. People are going to spend down their money or pull their money, whatever. There would be zero shock to that. And it would be a known thing that, hey, we're highly exposed to the price of oil and just to the energy industry. People knew that SVB was, but almost like, I don't want to talk too far on this, but it's almost like SVB didn't recognize that they were exposed to this themselves, that when we've had a meaningful downturn in the funding of all of these startups, that there's just not going to be as much deposits sitting there. And as those deposits dwindle, other people get scared and then they look at the rest of their portfolio. And you know, But you're right, Pete, that they do look a little different from the standard bank. I hope we're not going to have further runs.
I would think like AI, we said AI, right? I would think that there's the ability for these banks to understand how much they can withstand in withdrawals in a 2-week, 3-week, 30, 90, 60, you know what I mean? Like,
George, have you ever looked at banks? You ever looked at a bank's IT platform?
no. AS400, I know that.
I mean, it's a little bit beyond DOS in most of these things, especially because, I mean, you think, Silicon Valley Bank should have been different. They have less excuse. But if you look at the larger ones, they are an amalgamation of so many different banks that they've purchased, so many different systems, that it's just patchwork altogether. So actually getting clear reporting, I think, is a prayer.
That's interesting.
By the way, talking about bank integration, I was the developer for, I was the IT director and lead developer for software technologies, all the data gates.
Okay.
And banking, you probably used a ton of them as we integrated systems, because we never truly integrated them. We moved them back and forth. And that's kind of what Joel's saying. It was never really integrated.
It's a little scary now that we're talking about this. One other pivot I'm going to do before we get into technology. So you were in currency trading.
Yeah.
Kind of a shift in the world market now where, like, was it BRICS, right? Brazil, China, India, like all these countries are like, yeah, we're going to kind of, push the US dollar out and kind of make our own thing happen. Sounds like that has some traction to it. It's a little scary. Is the US dollar in trouble? What do you think?
It's interesting. I just saw this week, there's almost seemed like there was a coordinated effort in a lot of media outlets that were showing, like, hey, so all of a sudden Saudi is doing this with trading in oil, Russia and China are making this agreement. There is historical precedent for every large, well-developed country, economy, society to kind of create its own demise. I hope that's not what's happening. I'm not trying to push that narrative, but it's just as much as saying, when you say, is it on the way out? Historically speaking, like, we've gone a long time. Like we've I don't think, I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do in order to regain, I think, where we were. We just don't seem to be there right now. The dollar still is the primary form of trade. It's the fact that, Russia's been able to make a lot of noise and China might want to make a push. But to be fair, China still owns tons and tons and tons and tons of dollar assets. So they're not really that incentivized yet to just try to seek out the destruction of the dollar. So even if that's happening, we've got some time maybe to reconcile some things. But when it comes to the currency markets, we've got lots of things that have been quite interesting that are happening. It kind of, there's a little part that's like, oh man, it'd be fun to kind of trade some of this stuff. But it is it's huge, and it is quite complex. There are a lot of things that are just, let's get some marketing wins, for our populace. I mean, not that I really know if Xi Jinping actually has a real vote, or if Putin is actually ever up for election before he passes. But still, you want to get some popularity points in the country with your people. But I think turning it back to kind of the technological angle is, what does that mean for the rise of crypto? And that becomes quite fun. A fun thinker, a great thinker, I think, Balaji Srinivasan, who was former CTO over at Coinbase. He publicly made a bet in the last week or two that we're about to hit hyperinflation of the dollar, and Bitcoin would hit, within the next 90 days, it'll hit $1 million a coin.
What is it at now?
27,000. It's
That's
a big
huge increase.
It's a jump. Yes, it would put Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a total market cap, or total cap of the coins that can be issued in total. In the code of 21 million. So if Bitcoin is at a million per Bitcoin, that would put Bitcoin overall market cap at 21 trillion. That's large. I don't know the best way to contextualize it other than it's just, it's certainly way larger than the U.S. economy at that point.
It's George type money. That's how we.
Right. It's kind of like, yeah, George. Like, you're
yeah,
kind
me
of
and Elon, we talk all the time. I mean, I told him what to do with Twitter. It's all good. Just kidding. Yeah, so it's just interesting, right? Because you have a very cool financial background. So just figured I'd pick your brain on a couple of current topics. But here's the reality: there are a lot of big companies and even startup companies that are doing business in other currencies, right? They're doing business in Canadian dollar, British pound, euro, Australia, New Zealand, yen. What's the Japanese currency? Forget that.
That's the yen. You just said it.
Yen. Okay, yeah. So like, there's a lot of, but like, to some degree, even if as a smaller vendor, you're in a really big game that you have no control over, right? The currency fluctuation changes
Absolutely
hourly, maybe even faster, right? So like, depending on when your deposits all settle, it could be wildly different from yesterday to today. Like South Africa is a good one, right? Where their currency is like a roller coaster from week to week.
Yeah. South Africa, the rand, they've had quite a bit of volatility, whether geopolitical or just economic. But it's absolutely true. We have a lot of staff over in the Philippines.
That's a popular one for a lot of companies these days.
Yeah, we've got just a tremendous staff over there. They're awesome. And for instance, we have effectively dollarized their compensation so that they're not experiencing the whims of the Philippine peso over there, because certainly what happened quite a bit is the Fed was hiking so aggressively last year that the dollar was rising, because as the Fed hikes, they're just shrinking the supply of dollars. You go lower supply than in the same demand, then you're going to see that dollar appreciate, and that's kind of in the kind of most boiled down terms that's what we saw, and we saw an aggressive rally in the dollar, which meant that everybody, if we're paying our staff in the Philippines in pesos, it is their purchasing power gets lower and lower as usually it correlates with inflation. And so instead we've dollarized, so they get paid a fixed dollar amount in pesos. So that actually, they were quite comfortable with that, but that helps, that works for us being a dollar nation, dollarized. If it turns the other way and the dollar were to decline and we were paying people in, again, say the Philippines, we're having to pay more and more and more and more if the dollar declines, because against the Philippine peso. If we have
but on the reverse of that, right? Like if let's say you had customers or partners in other countries, like Microsoft just went to a lot of foreign currencies and said, hey, starting 90 days from now, we're giving you, and it was nice that they gave 90 days notice, I guess. They were like, hey, your rates are now going up by 12% in whatever currency we're billing you in. And now all of a sudden it's like, we really didn't, like, other than NCE here in the US, we didn't see them just outright saying, hey, we're applying a currency, correction increase effectively against what we're charging you.
Yeah. So, when you look at public companies on their income statements, there will be that line for currency translation gain and loss. And so when I was in New York, a lot of the things that I would do was trading with the Microsofts of the world to help them hedge. I specifically did do some work with them to hedge some of that exposure. So when they can, they certainly want to take price increases and pass those through. But at the same time, if they're going to be receiving tens, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in other currencies, that becomes meaningful for them to put some hedging structures on. And so we would do a lot of that. Again, for us, when if you're receiving revenue in those currencies and they're declining, that's not as good. If there's currencies declining and we have expenses, then it works out quite well. And I'll give you a fun little story from back in the 2008. So one of the biggest tortilla makers in the world was a big customer, and because we did a lot of trading in Mexican peso. So the peso was appreciating at this time throughout 2005, 6, 7, because they had high interest rates relative to the US's relatively low interest rates. So people would buy the peso, use dollars to buy pesos, and a carry trade. You're earning more interest on it and stuff. So, but this tortilla manufacturer is selling their tortillas in the States. You've had their tortillas, but their expenses are in pesos. Now, it's funny to think that they're like, shoot, this is a problem because we keep getting dollars, but the dollar's declining against our peso. So they started putting on these hedges.
Hmm.
The hedges started making money. So the Treasury Department at this tortilla manufacturer started putting the larger hedges on. Because if you overhedged, he could actually become a profit center for the company. As those hedges got larger and larger and they became a bigger portion of the profits, it felt good until 2008 when it all reversed. And if you've overhedged a position, now you're exposed. And it's sort of, you're like short and everything's just going up and you got to do whatever you can to get out. You can have these things turn on a dime if you're not kind of prudent about it, which is very similar to what we saw with SVB. SVB would have been just fine all along if the deposits had stayed, but something happened, something triggered, and people started pulling, and then enough other people start pulling. But not to get so into the fear of it as much as just kind of like look at the understanding of like, when the dollar is appreciating, there are things that can be really helpful for us as far as our expenses overseas, but it can be punishing for revenues and vice versa. So there can be a give and take. The key thing is just to not get yourself too exposed, because this tortilla manufacturer went through some serious struggles afterwards because as the dollar appreciated, they had to continue buying more and more and more dollars back. Their treasurer had done well for some time, and then it almost took them under. Fortunately, they're not, because we need those tortillas. They make some good tortillas.
Absolutely, 100%, no question. I mean, Tim Tolman, my buddy over here, who like loves to go over the border to have lunch sometimes. I like to keep him on this side when I'm over. Got to have the tortilla. Of course, the places like Taco Bell probably need those too, but we're probably avoiding them if we can. All right, so let's get back into technology. I'm going to give you a quick technology story, and then we're going to talk about your stuff a little bit. So I came back in from IT Nation London, and all the global entry kiosks were broken. And then I found out that my other guy who was flying into another airport, JFK, all his global entry kiosks were broken. And then I had a guy on the phone yesterday say, I had the same guy flying into an airport in Florida the same day you were flying in, and all their global entry kiosks were broken. I'm like, man, this is an IT problem. Like, if you can't operate the program, a little bit salty. I'm buying something I can't get, by the way. I'm got to stand in line like everybody else, which, if you follow me at all, you know that that's not necessarily a good thing. But then, like, you got to at least operate the solution, the technology that, makes your program work. And just for not for nothing, even the big guys have problems, right? So who knows if that was more of a global issue across the country. It sounds like it was. Very frustrating. But back to your point. And we talk about security left, right, up and down. And every day there's a new story. And I was just listening to a guy last night on a quick call. And he was like, hey, I was just with somebody at CISA in DC, and they had this little summit, and like they're coming after MSPs and the vendors that kind of are behind MSPs. And like, we got to figure out how to make these everybody's software secure by default. And you have to go in and like turn the security off rather than on. I'm like, that's an interesting idea. But like all things said, the bad guys are getting smarter. We know that. Still, the biggest problem is in between the keyboard and the chair, right?
Absolutely.
So back to your psychology and like the whole how human behavior works, which we can argue about Gen Z and millennials and all that and how we all differ. But bottom line is, hopefully people are getting smarter using their computer technology. What do you think?
Are they getting smarter? They are. People are getting smarter. But at the end of the day, the attackers get smart just the same. And it's interesting. One of the fastest adopters of new technology always has been criminals. Always.
Really?
Yeah. One of the fun little anecdotes. There's we've heard of this guy, Machine Gun Tommy.
Yeah.
I think not Machine Gun Kelly, the rapper guy, but Machine Gun Tommy. The key thing, he was Machine Gun Tommy because he had a machine gun before the police had any kind of firearms that could match that. So his group had been one of the first adopters of this new technology that allowed him to perpetrate crimes better, faster than others, and until the law enforcement caught up. It's the criminals are often, I mean, not to try to give them too much credit, but the best criminals are actually quite sharp. They would be, if their efforts were just pointed in a different direction, maybe they would be, a bit more useful for the world. A lot of these hackers are quite sharp. But there's also a lot of tools that they can use now that expedite their learning, expedite their attacks. A lot of people have written, us included, on some of the tools that AI brings to bear for these attackers. So back to the question, are people smarter? Absolutely. But we're facing a behavioral problem, not a knowledge problem. Most of the users at every one of our partners, most of those end users, each one of us is likely aware that something bad can happen if they click on something. Like that something bad can happen if they download the wrong thing. But and we can teach them how to look at a file, look at a URL, make a decision whether or not they should open that Dropbox email. But at the end of the day, the key problem is that people so quickly forget to utilize those same tools. Here's an example. Monday morning when you're sharp and you've just taken your security awareness training, you're less likely to go click on something. Fast forward in the week, and Wednesday you get a call and your kid's sick at school or just got in trouble, and you've got 15 emails that you have to go fly through real quick because you got to go jet over and pick them up. And you are no longer in a mindset that you're going to be keying in on every single one of those potential risks for a phishing email. Or let's say Thursday night, you and the crew go out. Friday morning, some people may be a little bit groggy, and they wake up and they've got a handful of emails that they want to push through. And it's so easy at that point then to make a mistake, to stumble. What we see through our data, because we send out lots and lots and lots of phishing emails, simulated attacks sanctioned by our customers. What we see is that it isn't necessarily, if I showed you a whole bunch of different templates and you were like, that one looks amazing, that must be the highest click rate. It's not always that. Sometimes it's the ones that look like they really look like they were just put together by somebody that didn't know what they were doing. And because what we do is we just take what's in the wild and we actually recirculate those through to our partners so that we can actually take what real attacks are happening. And I'll give you one example. One of the templates that got lots and lots of clicks that you'd be so surprised about. It was just pure plain text, and it was an Outlook voicemail alert. Ask any other people who clicked on it if they've ever gotten an Outlook voicemail, and they're like, I don't know, but I had a voicemail. I needed to go download that thing. But if you actually step back and look at the email and you weren't in a rush or you didn't feel any push or hurry, you'd be like, this is obviously not real. But it's that we attackers key in on, so we key in on the behavioral things, whether it's urgency or fear of loss or that can drive somebody to do something that they might not have otherwise done, but also then varying the time hits you in different conditions, different mental states. So to answer the question again, people are getting smarter. It's just that our behavior could really fight against us. We often do things that we don't intend to do or we regret, and it's human nature. We still are emotional beings. We still do make mistakes. We're always going to make mistakes. So how do we fix it? This is one of those angles, and we try to create safe behavior. I teach my little boy every single time before we walk across the street. We look both ways, and every time he's 2 years old, he goes, "No car coming, all good." And so then we know that we can walk across the street. In this case, like the behavior there is to say, okay, well, we look and just make sure that nobody's there. We're not looking to see, okay, I see a car, but let's measure the stopping distance of that Tesla that's coming our way versus this 1982 Honda Civic. Can we kind of Frogger our way across? Which is often what a lot of people feel like they're doing when they're having to go inspect a URL and really get into it, versus here's a safe behavior when you get a LinkedIn notification. The equivalent of looking both ways is you just go to linkedin.com. It's going to be there if that notification is real. You don't actually need to click on that link. A good attack that came through last year was a PayPal attack, and it told you were going to lose $600. $600 was going to be debited from your account if in the next 24
I actually think I got this email as well.
So hopefully you saved your $600. But in reality,
Yeah,
it came from a legitimate PayPal email. It was a hacked business account from PayPal. So if you went through and looked at the sender, it looked legit. It totally looked legit. Now, if you dug a little bit further and into the link, you would see that it wasn't. But if somebody just went to paypal.com, the safe behavior, the looking both ways to make sure no car coming, then you would see, hey, there's nothing here. And hopefully you would then just have the wherewithal to be like, you know what, that seems fishy. Delete and move on. So
for the people that did click on that email, my advice to them was change your password right away. But you know what I figured out with PayPal, since we're on that topic, Joel? They don't enforce 2FA or MFA unless you actually go and turn it on. Comes back to that whole, why isn't that just required by default? Why do I have to go and specifically turn it on? I should have to go and turn it off.
Every technology company wants to reduce friction.
Yeah. I think Twitter just the other day said, hey, we're turning 2FA on for everyone. Sorry. Like, I think it was, one of those Elon moves. And I was like, yeah, because every other company on the planet should be turning this on by default. I don't get why we're still having this conversation.
Yeah, I certainly we'll keep moving in that direction. But yeah, I think it's the extra little bit of friction does turn people off. And for PayPal, when there are other alternatives, maybe that's the business decision they've made. Maybe they've made some questionable decisions recently. PayPal is just some corporate decisions, but it's key and it's very helpful. I mean, everybody has now become used to having some second factor of authentication. So you have some excuse to. But we consistently hear from our MSP partners that MFA 2FA is a hard one to push through, and it's usually to the George Bardisi executives of the world, though. So,
I've learned a long time ago that all of the ancillary people that are around the executives are just the road that people are trying to take to actually get that guy or girl. Like, it's all about, hey, they're sending a spoofed email to somebody underneath the CEO from the CEO saying, send a wire transfer, go buy gift cards, or, whatever the shtick is these days. But yeah, I mean, here's the reality, right? The money approver is the person that they're going to attack. At the end of the day, that's who they're trying to get to, right? So, and I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, I've talked to many people where they're not even just sending outright text messages, right? Where they're like, hey, this is George, the CEO. Go out and buy some gift cards for me from Best Buy or whatever, iTunes or Amazon. I need you to send this to a customer. And then people actually do that. And it's like, wait a minute, why don't you just ask? But I digress. Why adopt your platform versus all the other options out there? I mean, there's a lot, right? I mean, there's enterprise, there's all over the place. Why would an MSP look at your solution for the security training checkbox versus something?
Yeah, and I would love to, if Brad wants to hop in and talk about some of that security training checkbox, if that's okay, if he wants to.
Feel free. I mean, Brad, he'd be more than happy to jump into the conversation. I mean, I feel like the checkbox, and now having come over from Europe, and now they have something where, and I mentioned this on the last call, like they're almost using the insurance industry just like we're seeing it here. Maybe they're a little bit ahead, where you can't actually get an insurance policy unless you've passed the government's kind of predefined path, right? And like, that's part of it, by the way, right? The security training part. But like, people send it out once a year. How effective is it? I don't know. Probably not. But just to say that they did it, okay.
Yeah. And there's more to it. And Brad, I saw you unmuted. I appreciate it. Your podcast that you had on a few months ago was awesome when you were saying that everybody needs to send a declination notice if they didn't have security awareness training. And I think that's actually a little bit more of the interesting conversation. I'll answer your question real quick, George, but we have a fully automated platform, and that's why this shirt says 3 clicks to freedom. It is 3 clicks and you're fully onboarded. And
really, not 4, not 5, 3.
That's why we say, hey, come check us out. I'll type in a little link here. But I don't want to go through our whole sales pitch, but that's what is winning the day for our MSPs, and that's what they appreciate is that they can come in and it is 3 clicks to onboard. And what that means then is because we've integrated with 365 and Google, that all of the user adds and deletes are taken care of same day. And as Brad can attest to, one of the key problems has been, we did start security awareness training, but 6 months ago they hired 10 more people and we forgot to put them in, and oh shoot, that second hire out of that 10, that's the person who clicked. Now we've got the subrogation issue with our insurer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually a really plausible story, right? I mean, people are adding and removing people all the time. Things happen. Did they include them in the program right away? No, probably somebody forgot. And then they get hit, and then the insurance company is going to deny the claim because they never took. I mean, I guess that could happen. You tell me, Brad. You're on the
first
clock.
of all, hello everyone.
Hi.
I not only did I talk about this in terms of a declination letter, like Joel said, but I actually did a podcast a couple of now it's months ago, specifically saying if you're not offering a security awareness training solution, then not only are you doing a disservice to your customers, under some scenarios, you could be exposed to legal liability. So yeah, I think it's not just something that if they decline it, that, issue a declination notice, letting them know what they've declined and the idiocy of their decision. But I think that under some scenarios, legal liability could attach should something go wrong. So I'm right there in Joel's, corner on all that. Now I don't even remember the question.
No, I mean, I think Joel was saying, kind of what you were talking to, right? Let's flip the question around, right? If you don't have it, are you in a bad position versus if you do have it, and what version and how much and how many? But Brad, is one time a year enough for you to check the box and say, well, we did it in January, first week of January when nobody was working, we sent out the link and then we never looked back. And then the next January we sent out another one. Is that enough? Does that cover the requirement here?
There is no legal or statutory requirement that says, generally speaking, that says that security awareness training must be repeated on a certain prescribed schedule. However, what the cases show and what the laws are evolving toward is engaging in security awareness training on a schedule that is reasonably related to the security risks and the information that you have possession of. If you have super sensitive information, if you're dealing with PHI, if you're dealing with financial information, I don't think that it's going to be reasonable to say, well, every January we train them. Well, you also hire people in February, which means those people don't even get trained until the next year. And that happens all the time. So I think that companies would be well advised to not try to just simply check off the box, like you're saying, George, and engage at least every quarter, every calendar quarter. So you can say that not only are you hitting all the people that might have been newly hired, but it's a relative frequent schedule. Is it every month? I think every month probably is excessive. I mean, hey, I have no problem if they do it, but I think that every quarter should probably be the standard that council.
So and again, maybe the answer, maybe there's not a definitive answer, but what qualifies here? Is it a combination of the phishing tests to see who actually clicked and didn't click, or versus actually watch a series of some things and then took a quiz, or is it you need to actually define it? I don't what is the acceptable way of doing
so what you're touching on is not just scheduling. Now you're getting into the content of the offering itself. And again, there's no strict guidance right now legally from a statutory perspective, from a case perspective, but it's going to go to an analysis of whatever the company has. If you have certain things, you're going to be held to a higher standard. And it's not going to be enough to say, well, we sent this to them. We assumed they read it and they checked off they read it and so forth. I think that testing is required. Otherwise, you're not acting reasonably. And when you fail to act reasonably, that's when you start getting into negligence. And I believe that plaintiffs' lawyers are waiting to pounce in this area, just waiting.
Yes.
I guess technology law is a good place to be in. How automated is this, Joel? Because I can promise you that I'm sorry, crap always rolls downhill. Okay. If something happens and the end customer that you're servicing gets hit with whatever, we can just imagine what that is. They're going to turn around and say, whoa, 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 George's IT was responsible for that.
Mhm.
And then George's IT is going to say, well, I signed that to like my level 1 guy and he didn't do it. And like, that's game over, right? I mean, yes or no? How automated are we talking about here? Is this like literally set it and forget it, like the old infomercial guy, or like how much work is involved in monitoring this thing?
Yeah. So it's a great question, because at the end of the day, MSPs can only improve their bottom line, can actually only expand their margins if they can provide the same service, for the same cost with less manpower on it, less tech hours, or that they can increase the cost. Most MSPs are not very excited when they're pushing through price increases. So if they can provide a high quality security awareness training platform and also not have to put in the tech hours, then all of a sudden they've got additional margin there. But to Brad's point, and thank you, Brad. I do really appreciate your podcast on this and your thoughts on it. Is that there's a lot that's not specified what's required, but it's important right now that we just step back and not say, hey, are we, do we have, have we hit it at the exact number of times and stuff? By default, we do quarterly, just like Brad said, and we do monthly phishing and all of that, so that it satisfies the broadest requirements. But the key problem that we're really facing for these MSPs is that there are people who are just not even getting enrolled, accidentally not enrolled, because most of these platforms, most of the vendors out there, it takes a lot of work. So to your question on how much is required, there is literally nothing that is required after onboarding. It's because we want to solve a key problem for the MSP. The key problem for the MSP is that this is one of 55 other things in their stack that takes a lot of time to manage, and they don't get a lot of revenue for it. But again, it's a really key thing. Which antivirus would you pick if you had to go and constantly keep updating its virus definitions versus the one that did it automatically? And you're like, this one, and it's the same price. Like, what am I doing? Security awareness training is going to be moving more and more into being a utility that is required across every single stack, because you do not get your cybersecurity insurance. You do not get you fail your regulatory requirements. You fail any vendor questionnaires. And so the objective here is to solve the problem for the MSP. There is nothing you have to do. Are there things you can do? Certainly. There's a lot of different ways that we can pull reporting. You can customize some things here and there, but the objective is to satisfy the regs, improve the security of your end clients without having to drain your tech team.
All right, so let me just paint a really broad stroke. You sign up as an MSP, you tie into your customer's Google or Office 365 and let the system run. Now, does the vertical of the end user change the type of things that you're sending out? Meaning, like, if I have a doctor's office separate from an accounting firm, separate from a manufacturing, type entity, like, do you have industry specific stuff that kind of changes, or how does that work?
There are industry specifics that we put in that are necessary. In healthcare, you have to have something with HIPAA. In hospitality, something with PCI. There's GDPR for those who touch the EU, things like that. There's a lot of the content that overlaps all across industries, and then there are specifics. And we take care of all that for our partners so that they're not having to go and become experts on the changing regulatory landscape of of security awareness training, or trying to dig up the latest precedent, because as Brad said, like the regulators haven't specified a lot yet. They've specified some things, and they've specified content that, types of topics that need to be hit, but it's in broader strokes, but they also haven't specified the timing. And so it has to be related, again, as Brad was saying, to your need. And that's what the regulations point to. But none of us, none of our partners need to go and become experts on the case law as there's precedent that it's set.
So Anthony pops in and says, what role do you think AI will play in the future of educating users in real time based on their behaviors or anticipated behaviors, job roles, target value, ?
This is great. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. So this ties in exactly to the question that George had just asked, but where we start talking about, is it just broad-based? Is it just all the same? Or do you need specifics? Well, how do you handle specifics? So we do a lot of that with the training content, but then when it comes to the phishing, that is where you can get a lot of very interesting things to do. And specifically on this, where we already do a lot of analysis on our end users' behavior with our phishing emails. That, when you ask George, if an accounting firm or a medical facility or a law firm, or whichever examples you'd use, does it change? We instead change it based on the behavior of that end user. So yes, there's a lot, Anthony, that comes about with AI. In broad strokes, without giving too much sort of of some of the fun stuff to come away, is the ability to spin up things in real time that are based on some inputs that we're able to gather about that organization or about that organization's risk because of tie-ins with, say, other kinds of other tools within their stack. That becomes quite fun, quite interesting. There's some time that it's going to take to build some of those things, but AI will absolutely have a role. Put it this way: you can now use text to create a video. If there are triggers that we need to create custom bespoke of some kind, there's going to be ways to do that. How we build it so that it can be delivered to the MSP community, again, so that they don't have to do something, is going to be a challenge and something interesting. But undoubtedly, there will be some really remarkable opportunities to utilize AI as we move across.
I got some things that popped in my head, Brad, if you're still around. What if somebody keeps on failing their security test phishing simulations, and like they're just like the worst performer you've ever seen, and wonder if you should even be touching a computer ever in their lifetime? Is that enough to go on for a company to say, yeah, maybe you don't belong here? It's enough.
Well, under the scenario you're giving, you're saying that you have a known and identifiable vulnerability in your chain of command, in the link of people who are accessing the network. You have to get rid of that person. You have to replace that person. Should something happen, that is a slow-moving target for plaintiffs' attorneys.
Yeah, I can see where it goes from both sides, right? They're going to say, well, I wasn't terminated fairly, or I was improperly terminated, but you're going to come back with your reports and say, hey, George is the absolute biggest security risk we have in the company, and he doesn't want to actually fix anything.
Right. Well, the idea is that there would be a record of all of those failures, a record of all of those deficiencies. So it would be, an employee would be hard pressed to argue that he or she was terminated improperly. I mean, if you're worried about the employment thing, then just remove that person from the chain, right? Reassign that person until training can be completed successfully. But
okay, you're going to be on sweep the floor duty until you can.
Once you know about it. And it's funny, as you're sitting here, I'm going to give you some inside baseball. I'm actually reviewing a processing agreement offered by a very, very large company who will remain nameless. And as you're talking, I'm looking at the paragraph that says training and awareness. And it basically says that the MSP has to warrant and represent that it will provide, quote, appropriate security awareness training on a regular basis with regular updates in accordance with the level of risk and responsibility undertaken by the processor. And it says risk factors include, but are not limited to, the personal nature of the data processed and the risk to consumers if their information is accessed in an unauthorized manner. So this is sort of exactly what we were just talking about earlier. It depends on the level of risk and responsibility.
What if they just don't engage, right? You enrolled them automatically. Awesome.
Mhm.
And then they never take it. And then they get the next email. Hey, you still didn't do this. You need to click on this and do this. And they still don't do it. Like, at what point is it, hey, you can't log into your computer until you finish this, or you need to go? Like, can you do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Really, there's no, I mean, it's just hard stop. Absolutely.
They do it to us all the time.
Really?
Well, it's a little bit different. They say if you don't take the training, you won't get any more lead flow. So
Oh, well, that's pretty big stick, actually. That's interesting, Lisa. Thanks for letting us know. But that's, yeah, I just, so number one, got to have your own house in order. MSPs need to be doing security awareness training for their own people. They're touching a lot of other people's systems. So got to at least have your people covered. Customer needs it as well. They need to be able to go through and say that their people have taken it. At some point, Joel, somebody has to go look at a report and make sure that like people actually took it, or they need to like take the stick out and say, hey, you need to do this now or we got a problem. I wonder, now that I'm even like going further in my head, I wonder if people would use this in a hiring capacity as well, right? Like, hey, you sound like a great candidate, but I need you to see if you can pass this little quiz.
You can pass our security test.
I mean, it sounds funny, but is it really that far off? I don't think so.
Well, it's almost like a minimum skill is what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Proficiency in Word, right? Proficiency in QuickBooks, whatever it happens to be. Proficiency in detecting, at least at a foundational, a basic level, security vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
Sure.
And I would imagine that if it's not already in this, like, the company's security policies, this is something that has to be added, which sometimes MSPs don't get that deep, but you really should say, hey, can you show me what your employee, information policy is, or security policy, whatever. Do you actually even put this in the job rec? Hey, minimum requirements. Need to know how to use a computer. Need to know how to fast security test. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit too bland, but maybe.
If you ever see that, I think you should put them on, whatever company does that should be on one of your webinars here, George. You should say you're leading the way company
right.
in minimum requirements.
It's a thing now, right? I mean, if this is how people are going to get jammed up legally, or this is how the insurance companies are going to basically say, we're just not going to pay out this claim. I mean, you almost need to be proactive now, right? Because like, unless you're going to wait for the shoe to drop, which I feel like that's kind of what's happening at a large scale. I think we're kind of being dragged into this whole conversation as a whole, just in fear of what could, or could, what bad thing could happen in the event, of a bigger thing. But bottom line is, I'd like to, and there's a lot of good people in the industry, Joel, you're obviously companies trying to make it like fish, set and forget and turn it on and let it run, which is awesome, by the way, because I think MSPs just largely don't have enough time to do everything they say they're supposed to do, or maybe should be doing. There's some good security, minded people in the industry that are trying to move this thing forward as a whole, right? And like try and like get a little bit smarter, and be proactive. But I get the feeling, and I'll kind of finish on this, Joel, get your opinion real quick, that the average MSP is still not necessarily floating on this conversation of, being ahead of the game. I think a lot of people are kind of drowning and just trying to get up to breathe.
Security has become, a hot topic for every one of our partners, and it is one of the most important things that they can put forward to win new end clients. Which then means, as Brad said in his podcast, is like, for instance, if you say that you are a security-centric MSP and you don't happen to have anything that protects the end user, like a security awareness training, said that might bring about liability for you because you may be making a false claim there. And so, that is where the MSP community has so many great resources to come to find, great vendors, us or others, who can satisfy those needs across the board. It's a lot of different things. That's why we automate it. We also even provide that policy that you just mentioned that is tailored based on every single one of those clients. Because it's another huge step for one of these MSPs, and it's a lot of work for them.
100.
So some of them have a lot of the resources to do it, and most of them don't. And we're happy to serve every single one of them.
Joel, how do people find out?
I think we don't look at is you need that training to help design proper security. So you need to look at the results of the training to learn how you segment your network, what permission level an employee has earned, for lack of a better word, and how you need to really apply all your security parameters that align with the business process.
No, that's
Absolutely.
true. 100%. Joel, how do people find out more about your program and get a little bit more of information on if they think this is the right fit?
Yeah, so I just put a link in there, the infimasec.com/talk to us. We can do a quick 15-minute demo. Don't have to take too much time out of your day, and you can find out some more. That is also our domain where you can pop in and see, what we do. But we love serving this community. Thank you, George and team, for putting this on. And Keith, as always, I appreciate your insights, and it's always fun to get to talk to you. Brad, thank you. I will take free Brad time anytime it comes.
Well, Brad will be joining us later on this year at an event we're putting on MSP Community Minds. But check out and Google the technology Bradcast. I screwed that up way back when, but it's Bradcast. Pretty cool content there. And when it
Great.
comes out, I listen, trust me, because me and Brad go back and forth, and sometimes I poke him on his Bradcast. But
You actually sometimes punch me on it. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's a
Good to
Philly
chat
thing,
with you too, Joel.
What can I say? Anthony, did you have anything on the way out the door? I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just didn't see the link.
Yep.
Sure.
I will resend it out to everyone right here. So there you go. Sade. Whoops. Yep. She's sending it out to the whole group right now. But it's under the chat in the
Got it.
We'll be there. Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining. This session was recorded. Go back and rewind. By the way, don't hesitate to poke Joel on some of that financial market stuff. Guy actually sounds like he knows what he's doing. That's why
I love it. We have to carve out more time. That's the problem.
Yeah. Now, just try and squeeze as much as you can. So anyway, stay tuned for future sessions, Tuesdays, Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time. Try and sneak them in even when I'm flying out to these overseas locations. Sometimes we need to take a break because like the time zones don't match up, but we try and keep them going. Make sure to hit mspinitiative.com. This session we posted there. Now, Joel, I'm not going to put a gun to your head, but the last couple of people have actually given out their cell phone number on this. You don't want to do that, do you?
I'm more than happy to, if anybody wants to get to know me.
Go ahead. Put it out there.
Do you want me to type it in here?
No, just give it out loud, man.
All right, 407-361-2260. I love talking with our partners. I mean, I love it when I get to.
This isn't like I have like a trend going now where like people are actually putting their phone number out there. Don't put your social security out there, please. Phone number, that's a good one. Don't hesitate to reach out to Joel. Thanks everybody for jumping on. Catch you on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, George.